Right foot!
Ironically, I have a little bit of laryngitis, so my voice is worse than usual too. Well fitting for my theme. Sometimes to initiate changes in your life, things should get worse, and then even worse, until you hit the rock bottom. I was 9 years old back in Russia, attending piano classes for a couple of years, with barely any success. I was not interested at all. But being a responsible kid and willing to please my parents, I would go in twice a week, sit through 45 minutes of my teacher calling me slow and stupid and hitting me on the back for slouching. My parents never believed me, thinking I was making excuses in order not to play piano. I would also miss a lot of classes due to constantly getting colds. I think my whole body resisted the torture. Instead, my dream was to start skiing, but my parents considered it dangerous. At some point, there happened one particularly long stretch of flus and other colds for me, and I knew that it would be hard to get back and catch up on my music classes. And I knew that would lead to another round of abuse from my teacher, and I just couldn't tolerate this anymore. I asked my mom to take me to class that day, but instead of leaving for errands, I asked her to wait behind the door. Unaware of this scenario, my teacher started the lesson from calling me retarded and promising to tell my parents to take me to a therapist. Then she promptly hit me in the back for slouching. Once seeing all that, my mom barged in like a lioness. "What are you doing to my child?" I was immediately allowed to stop my piano lessons and start sports. Within just a couple months, my health improved so much, I ended up only catching a cold maybe once every 2 years. Unfortunately, that feeling of responsibility and sticking it out until the bitter end followed me into my adult life. Many years later, I was finishing college in Moscow while also working full-time and being in a relationship that was becoming a burden. I was feeling more and more tired each day, but still trying to make sure I had time to see my boyfriend, who was constantly upset with me for spending all my time writing my graduate research. I remember sitting at work that one day with a triumphant feeling. My work was almost done, and the only thing left to write for this paper was an intro and the conclusion. Suddenly my phone rang. My guy insistently asked me to come over. I was too tired and promised to see him next day. He didn't like that, and we ended up fighting, as usual. On my way home later after midnight, I was mugged and beaten up. I somehow managed to save my cell phone, but when I called my boyfriend to share the news, I found no support from him. "I told you to stop working and studying so much, and just come over instead of traveling late. It's all your fault." Oh. And that's how I ended that relationship there and then. That betrayal also ironically led to immense relief. I was free. Later on, in my first 2 years in LA, I worked at a private school in West Hollywood. Not surprisingly, the school is in the news right now, in the middle of a college scam scandal. For years, its management helped high school kids fake SAT results. Why am I not surprised? In all the time that I spent at that school, I had no way to discipline my students or make them work. Being responsible though, as usual, I blamed myself. I tried my best to make my lessons more interesting and diverse. Very few things worked, unfortunately, and I was getting barely any support from the principal. "Their parents pay a hefty sum each year," he told me, cynically. "Why would I be on your side? Learn to teach the kids who don't want to study." So I kept blaming myself and trying to improve my teaching style, but the things kept deteriorating. However, one day it just became too much. I was administering a test in the 9th grade when I saw one of my students looking something up on his phone. It was over 12 years ago, and the phone was Razor. You must still remember them, the sharp one, right? I asked him to give it to me and extended my hand. Instead, he just stabbed my palm with his razor flip phone, leaving a scar, and I started bleeding. I couldn't believe it, so it seemed like a dream to me, so I got up from my chair and walked to the principal's office to complain. You know what he told me? Maybe you shouldn't grab students' phones, he said grumpily. Oh my God, I got up from my chair. It's my last day here then, and you can finish the exam for me, I exclaimed and walked out. I never looked back and started a new job later that month. Sometimes for things to get better, things have to get much worse first. If we don't catch the small signals from the universe, one day it gives us a big push, so we could finally understand and change our lives. So believe me when I say that sometimes worse is better. Also, being too responsible is overrated. Thank you.